session 71, and we concluded with the book of Paul, where he confirms that vengeance is Yahuwah's. And in the life of Isaac, we saw that if Isaac just treated his enemies in the way that the Bible describes, because of the seed that is inside of him, then Yahuwah himself will be the judge and will be the one that takes revenge at the end of the day. So remember, we gave you Old and New Testament witnesses of that fact that God is the judge and the avenger. But we also remember the Torah commandment in the Old Testament and confirmed in the New Testament, Yeshua being the second witness. And Leviticus 19 verse 18 says, "Thou shalt not avenge, nor bear any grudge against the children of your people, but you shall love your neighbor as yourself." And this Yeshua confirmed. You'll remember when they asked him, what is the greatest commandment? And he said, Shema Israel, Yahuwah Eloheinu, Yahuwah Echad. And you must love Yahuwah and you must love your neighbor. So we ask ourselves, who is our neighbor? Is our neighbor just the person that believes like us? Is our neighbor just the person that's got the same skin color as us? Is our neighbor just somebody who's in church with us? Well, they also asked Joshua that question, and he told them the parable of the Good Samaritan. And the moral of the parable of the Good Samaritan is, it's not who is your neighbor, but it is, who are you a neighbor to? Go and read the parable of the Good Samaritan if you still have a question about who you need to be a neighbor to. Let's continue. Genesis 26 verse 22 all the way to 27. And he removed from there, this is now Isaac, and he digged yet another well, and for that they did not fight with him. And he called the name of that well Rehoboth, and said, For now Yahuwah has made room for us. Rehoboth, Yahuwah has made room for us. He has made space for us. They are not fighting me for this well. And because Yahuwah has Rehoboth, or made room for us, we shall be fruitful in the land. Beautiful. Remember these names that I told you in Hebrew. It has absolute spiritual and physical implication and significance. We'll get to all the names of the wells now. And he went up from there to Beersheba. So Isaac moved away from the heat of the conflict. He left all the wells that he dug up that actually belonged to his father, remember? But he left all of that in the hands of the Philistines. He kept on moving on. And here we see, let's find out how Yeshua feels about that. Because as he went from all these wells that he dug, and he went out peacefully, and he went to Rehoboth, and then he went to Beersheba, what is the next verse? Because he did it this way. Verse 24, Yahuwah appeared unto him the same night, and he said, I am Yahuwah, the Elohim of Abraham, your father. Fear not, Isaac, for I am with you, and I will bless you, and I will multiply your seed for my servant Abraham's sake. So for the sake of his servant Abraham, because he can see Abraham's seed in Isaac, and because Isaac also withstood this kind of test that was given to him, and in the same way as Abraham, he displayed a good, strong character, not one that trusts in men, but one that trusts in Yahuwah. And Yahuwah confirmed the blessing and the covenant with Abraham. He confirmed that with Isaac. So it's beautiful how Yahuwah didn't remind Isaac of this blessing before he started digging up the wells. Maybe Yahuwah was allowing this difficult circumstances of the Philistines stealing time and time again Isaac's wells and making all his hard work to nothing and taking away from him what rightfully belongs to him. Claiming and stealing and falsely accusing. It's terrible. But maybe Yahuwah allowed this to happen to test Isaac, to see how he will react. And after Yahuwah saw how Isaac reacted, and how Isaac rather decided to trust on Yahuwah and not on, his own strength in fighting the Philistines, Yahuwah confirmed the covenant with Isaac. And it might be the same in your life. It's not nice when things happen to you. I mean, things happen to us every single day. We can't even talk about these things all the time. There are so many. But Yahuwah is allowing this, watching us, seeing how we are going to react, seeing what kind of toothpaste will come out if our tube is squeezed a little bit. And if the seed inside of you is genuinely the seed from the tree of life, the seed from the word of God, the seed of Yeshua, the word that became flesh, then when you are squeezed a little bit, may you be reminded of the life of Isaac, how he reacted, and how coals of burning fire was heaped on his enemies' heads, and how the Ruach, the Spirit, will work with him. You just react in the way that Yahuwah leads you. And Yahuwah allows this, and He watches you and sees how you are reacting, maybe for a reason. Maybe He just wants you to see that the seed inside of you has not really developed yet, or has not really bring forth fruit yet. Because Yahuwah knows the end from the beginning. He doesn't have to test you to know how your life will turn out. The testing is sometimes more for you and for me to see who and what we really are than it is for Him. He doesn't have to test us. He's almighty. He's all-knowing. He knows. He knew. Even before Jacob and Esau was born, before they were even conceived, He knew which one was going to choose him. That's why from the womb there was already that war inside of Rebekah. Yahuwah knows exactly how you are going to react. Your testing and Him allowing you to be tested is not for His sake, but for yours. Verse 25, and he built an altar there. Okay, let me just quickly stop here and ask you to consider, how did he know how to build an altar? Way before the time of Moses, when Moses wrote down all the sacrificial laws. Okay, let's continue. So he built an altar and he called upon the name of Yahuwah. And he pitched his tent. We talked about pitching tents, remember? These are the Torah-obedient people pitching their tents, living temporarily on this earth. All right? And there, Isaac's servants digged a well. Okay, so these guys, they just love digging, hey? Like Bob the Builder. Bob the Builder, we can do it. I remember Bob the Builder from my kids when they were young. Everywhere these guys went, Isaac and his servants, all they did, every day, the whole day, it seems to me, was digging wells. But now we get to the point where we can understand how important it was for Yahuwah to test Isaac. Okay, because we looked in the previous sessions why it was important for him to turn the other cheek. Like Yeshua says in the New Testament, love your enemies, pray for those that curse you, and love them that hate you, and give to them that are persecuting you. And we said at the end of the day, the Ruach HaKodesh will work with them. The burning coals will heap on their head. And here, now that he has left all the wells and he's left all the contention and the strife and the fighting and the warring and the unfair treatment, once he left all that behind in peace, and he decided to do it in the strength and in the trust of Yahuwah. And he went away to Rehoboth. He dug the well of Rehoboth, and then he went to Beersheba, and then he had this beautiful altercation with Yahuwah, where Yahuwah confirmed the blessing, and he built an altar and he answered Yahuwah, and he was just continuing with his daily work, digging another well and pitching his tent. Now we see what all this is going to culminate in, because now in verse 26, then after all these things, then Abimelech, remember the king of the Philistines, went to Isaac from Gerar. He went to him from Gerar. and Ahuzath, one of his friends, and Pichol, the chief captain of his army. So here comes Abimelech, and one of his big friends, so probably some noble, rich guy, and of course Pichol, the chief captain of the army. So here comes this whole entourage in the middle of the desert, and here they are coming to the tent, the humble tent of Isaac. So Isaac starts digging another well, right? He built the altar, he called upon Yahuwah, he heard the blessing of Yahuwah, and he continues with his daily life the next day. He starts digging another well. He's still busy digging that again after so many times before, when the Philistines come knocking on his door again. Really? Isaac must have thought, are you going to take this well again? How many more times must I dig and you take? And I must just keep my mouth shut and move away. And Isaac said to them, verse 27, wherefore come you to me, seeing that you hate me, and seeing that you have sent me away from you? So Isaac is, he's not angry, but he's definitely not happy. Okay, verse 28, and they said, we, okay, so who's this we now? That is we as the Philistine nation, me as the king, Pichol as the chief captain of the army, and even one of my friends being a witness. We as the Philistines, we saw certainly that Yahuwah was with you. Wow. Wow. After everything that Isaac had to go through, making peace when his enemy wanted to make war, handing over water after water, not striving and fighting back. Finally, the heaps of burning coals that was gathering as per the promise of Yahuwah upon the heads of his enemies made his enemies say, we have seen certainly that Yahuwah is with you. Can your enemies say that? Can you endure problems and unfair treatment until your enemies can make a U-turn and come back to you and say, listen, I can see that Yahuwah is with you, and I need to speak to you about Yahuwah. That's amazing. So, from Abimelech's side, why the sudden change of heart? How come he now changed his heart? Why are the Philistines coming to Isaac now, like a dog with their tails between the legs, asking for a covenant? Why? Because they saw certainly that Yahuwah was with Isaac, and that made them fear. It made them fear Isaac. Not because of Isaac, because Isaac just moved away every time there was conflict. But it made them fear because of the God of Isaac. So they came to make peace with him this time, and they did not come to dare to take away his well again. Remember this in your life. You endure. You forgive. You have to move on. You have to keep your mouth shut sometimes. You pray. You do good. But the enemy just keep on pushing you and pushing you and pushing you. But you endure and you trust in Yahuwah until one day, and maybe that day is today, that you will be surprised at Abimelech knocking on your tent door. That you are surprised at how God changed your enemy, the Philistines, or whoever your enemy is, into somebody who comes to you to ask forgiveness and to ask peace. Because why? Verse 28, they said, we see that Yahuwah is with you, and therefore we decided, let there be now an oath between us, even between us and you, and let us make a covenant with you. Verse 29, that you will not do us hurt. Can you see the comedy in this? I mean, Isaac he's strong and he's mighty, and Yahuwah made him very great and very prosperous and gave him 100-fold of the crops of his land, yes. But still, it's only one man against the kingdom of the Philistines. And here the Philistines are coming to him saying, we can see God is with you, but we're afraid of you. We want you to make an oath that you will not hurt us. Oh, this is funny. Okay, Abimelech continues and says, because we have not touched you, as we have done unto you nothing but good. Hello? Really? You have done to Isaac nothing but good. Oh, well, maybe that's your opinion. I know that's the opinion of a lot of people that have strife and contention with those that follow the way of Isaac and Abraham and Jacob. But they think they are doing good. In their heads, like here in the Philistines' head, he says, we have done nothing to you but good. Hogwash. I want to say another word, but yeah, I have to fight against that inside, that urge inside. But really, you're so arrogant you believe your own lies. And he continues to say, I've sent you away in peace. You are the blessed one of Yahuwah. That's maybe the first thing he says that is really truthful and honest. The rest is all hogwash. Just sad that the Philistines did not keep this oath or this covenant. And remember Goliath? He was a Philistine, right? Israel, since the time after Joshua, the time of Samson, remember Samson killed 1,000 Philistines with a donkey's jawbone? The Philistines, up to today, is still touching Israel, still hurting Israel. They said, we have not touched you, we have done nothing but good to you. Make now a covenant with us that you will not hurt us. But they keep on hurting and touching and stealing and killing and destroying Israel. They've never stopped. They did not keep their side of it, but they killed and destroyed and stole everything from Israel since then up to today. Remember Gideon? Oh no, wait, Gideon was the Midianites. No, those are the neighbors of the Philistines. Sorry, no, Gideon was Midianites, it wasn't Philistines. But you know how many times the Philistines came up against Israel. Isaac's life was an amazing testimony to the Philistines, and it had a huge impact on them. But still, they did not turn to the God of Isaac. Like I said to you before, I do not understand how somebody can be afraid of one man, one little Isaac. How they can see that the God of heaven and earth is with this man, and yet they continue in their idolatry. I do not understand. As we have done nothing unto thee but good, and we have sent thee away in peace. Weren't these the same people who had driven him out of their territory, asking him to leave after Rebekah was too beautiful for them to handle? Didn't they pursue him in the Negev, took away his wells time and time again? How could they say they had done nothing but good to Isaac? Some people just don't know how to ask forgiveness or how to apologize. Their ego and their internal lies prevents them from ever admitting that they have done wrong on their part. Deep inside, they know they are at fault, but pride prevents them from admitting it. So, even though they just said that they've done nothing but good, and Isaac mustn't do hurt to them, and they need to sign an oath, and let's forget about everything we've done to you. Okay, Isaac could have reacted again. Isaac could have reacted in a much different way. But let's read verse 30. And Isaac made them a feast, and they did eat and drink together. Isaac was willing to overlook this foolish and arrogant pridefulness. And Isaac didn't remind them of all the wrong and all the hurt and the damage that he experienced that they brought over him. Never mind all the inconvenience and the loss he had to endure. He did this in order to make peace and not war. Just like the Messiah and Paul said in the New Testament, remember, so should we do as well. Rather accept a half-hearted attempt of someone who comes to you. Don't remind them of all the bad things. We should accept any effort another person puts in to reconcile with us. This also reminds me of 1 Corinthians 13 that says liefde hou nie boek van die kwaad nie. Love doesn't write up all the evil things and keep it in a book to keep record of it. This is the kind of love that Paul says we need to have in 1 Corinthians 13. All right, verse 31 of Genesis 26, and they rose up before the morning, and they swore one to another, and Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. In peace they departed from Isaac. The Philistines departed in peace from Isaac. Remember, I promised you that we will see at the end of this study how Isaac's reaction to his enemies will gather heaps of burning coals on their head, and how his enemies will see his good works and give God the glory. Remember, we looked at how you are the salt of the earth, and how your light cannot be hidden, and how you need to do good work so that people can see it and give God the glory. And here we saw how the Philistines confirmed that the God of Isaac is indeed the Almighty. How the enemies will then get the revelation that the God of Isaac is indeed the only living Elohim. And how they ended up having a feast together, sitting around the same table, drinking of the same water from Isaac's well. This time they haven't stolen from him. And we saw how Yeshua said this is how we should treat our enemies too, that they can see God in us and through us, and maybe, just maybe, they will turn themselves to God. Make peace, not war. If they want to make war, let them. You do what God told you to do in His Torah, in His law, and also in the life of Isaac, also in the words of Yeshua. He tells you how to live in His law. He tells you how to live in the examples of the great men of the Old Testament. And Yeshua comes and He confirms all of His Father's words in the Old Testament to show to you how to live. Rather let your enemies have some of the living water that you've dug out of the well. And at the end of the day, they might just have their soul returned to their Creator. And you, through your effort, can thus bring glory to your Father. All right, so verse 32. And it came to pass the same day that the Philistines departed from Isaac in peace, that Isaac's servants came and told him concerning the well which they have digged. And he said to him, we have found water. Amazing. So remember we said the previous day, he was still digging like Bob the Builder. He just, wherever he stops and pitches his tents, he's just digging for water. But it's logical. There's not dams in the Negev desert. In Israel, there's hardly any dams. You have to dig a well if you want to feed your family and your cattle. So while the servants was digging for water, Abimelech and the rest of the Philistines came to Isaac, and they made the covenant. They had the feast together, and the next morning Abimelech left in peace. And then again, it's just amazing, God blessed Isaac. After he did not, like we agreed, he didn't remind Abimelech of all the bad things that was done to him. He accepted their half-hearted apology. He made peace with them. He even made them friends, because he sat around the table and he had a feast. He broke bread together with Abimelech, and he sent them away in peace. And the next moment, what happens the very next moment? the servants come and say, "Oh, so by the way, we actually found water." Why didn't they tell him the day before that they found water? They were still digging the day before, still looking for water. But again, Isaac withstood another big test of his character, and he was rewarded with his servants who found water. Yahuwah allowed them to find water in yet another well. Verse 33, and he called this well Sheba. Sheba. Therefore the name of that city is Be'er Sheba unto this day. So God gave Isaac yet even more water. He lost all the previous wells, but now he had his own. And he has peace with his enemies. So this well is his. Can you see how God blessed his obedience and his humbleness? Now, we have to look into the deep spiritual, because we've already looked at the physical life of Isaac, how this has an impact on your life and my life on an emotional level, but also let's dig even deeper. Let's also, like Isaac's servants, dig deep for water and for the living water, the spiritual, prophetic water. He called this well Sheba, because Sheba, the root word for Sheba is 7. And Sheba has got to do with Sabbath and Shalom. And we know that God created heavens and earth in 6 days, and the 7th day he rested. And the Old and New Testament confirms that 1,000 years to Yahuwah is like 1 day when it comes to the prophetic. So for 6 days, the earth will remain as it is. But on the 7th day, we'll have the Sabbath, millennium, the 1,000 years of peace. And in Deuteronomy 28, verse 9 and 10, Yahweh says, I established you as a set-apart people to myself, as I have sworn to you, if you guard my commandments and walk in my ways, says Yahuwah. Didn't Isaac do this? Wasn't Isaac obedient to the commandments? And wasn't he walking in Elohim's ways that he learned from his father Abraham? And didn't Yahuwah make Isaac a set-apart people to himself, a holy people that belongs to him? You will be my people, and I will be your God. Why? Verse 10, and all the peoples of the earth shall see the name of Yahuwah is called upon you, and they shall be afraid of you. Now, can you see how Deuteronomy confirms exactly what happened with the peoples of the land of the Philistines, who saw that Isaac was set apart, that he was guarding the commandments of Yahuwah. He was walking in the ways of his Elohim. And Abimelech and the Philistines have seen that the name of Yahuwah is called upon Isaac. And they were afraid of Isaac. Just like God says in Deuteronomy, they shall be afraid of your seed, Isaac. Because in Deuteronomy, Moses is talking to Israel, the 12 tribes from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's talking to their descendants, to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, to the seed that is as many as the stars in heaven. Not 100% fulfilled. That prophecy wasn't 100% fulfilled, but they have increased and multiplied tremendously. And while Moses is telling them and reminding them that they need to be Yahuwah set apart people, while he's telling them that the nations will be afraid of you, they all remember Isaac's life and Abraham's life. And even Jacob will get to how Laban mistreated Jacob, and how Laban wanted eventually to hunt Jacob down. And God said to Laban, you touch him, I'll kill you. The peoples of this earth will see that you are a set-apart people if you guard my commandments and they shall be afraid of you. How are you separated from the peoples of the earth? Just because you wear a cross around your neck? You go to church on a Sunday? How do people know that you are set apart if you don't keep the commandments of Yahuwah your Elohim, written up for you in the Torah, but only written on stone many years after Isaac? And we can read in the life of Isaac how he kept the commandments. And now Yahuwah blessed him multiple times, and how that caused his enemies to make peace with him because they were afraid of him. And Yeshua confirms all of this. Submit yourselves to the will of God. Seek first his kingdom, and all these things will be given to you, water and wells and enemies, like in the life of Isaac. And Paul says, submit to Yahuwah. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you because he is also afraid of you. Only if you submit to Yahuwah. What does that mean? What is being taught out there? What does it mean to submit to Yahuwah? You submit to him that has authority. How do you know what his authority is if you reject his Torah? Let's look at the names of the wells, and we can see again from the Old Testament that not even one word that came from the mouth of God and that is written up by men in the Bible is without meaning, not only in the life of Isaac, but not only in the life of God's nation, but in your life today. Okay, do you remember all the names of the wells? We read each one of them. Izak, that meant strife. The first one the Philistines took from him. He called that well Izak, and it means strife. The next one he called Sitna, where the Philistines took it away from him again, and that's called opposition or accusation. So Isaac survived strife, opposition, and accusation. How did he survive strife, opposition, and accusation? By striving back, by opposing back, by accusing back? No, he packed up and left. He kept his mouth shut, he packed up and he left. And then when he, Isaac, who didn't strive back, who didn't oppose or accuse back, when he dug another well, it was called Rehoboth. Rehoboth, remember, a broad way. Yahuwah has made room for us. It's called a broad way, like a broad street. And then he moved to Beersheba, remember, and that well he dug while his servants dug this well, while he was having feast with Abimelech. And this well he called Sheba. So he started with Izak, then he dug Sitna, then he dug Rehoboth, then he dug Sheba. He started with strife. He went on to opposition and accusation. Then Yahuwah made room for us with a broad way, a broad street, and he had Shabbat Shalom. Strife, oppositions, and accusations from your enemy. But you trust in God and react in the way, in the broad street, in the Rehoboth, that Yeshua said, and he will make room for you, and he will give you Shabbat. He will give you Shalom. Not only in this world, sometimes not even in this world. Because Sheba doesn't mean that you'll have no strife or opposition or accusation in this world. But Yahweh will make room for you to react in such a way as Isaac reacted, to heap coals on your enemy's head so that you can bring your enemy back into the kingdom of God and you will inherit Sheba. the Shabbat, the millennium, the kingdom of God. Maybe not in this life, but may you endure the strife, the accusation, and the opposition. May you see how Yahuwah makes room for you to work, good and faithful servant. And how that you are not keeping track of the bad and evil things, but you are forgiving like Yeshua forgave you. And the heaps of the Ruach HaKodesh, burning coals of fire, are heaping on your enemy's head, and they will turn to Yahuwah, hopefully with a repentant heart. And you will inherit and go into the peace of your King of Peace, Prince of Peace. He is promised to us right through the Old Testament, Isaiah 9, as the Prince of Peace, Sar Shalom. And He will stretch out His hand to you, Yod Hei Vav Hei, behold the hand, behold the nail. And you will stretch your hands out to Him. Just like Rebecca, your hands will be full of calluses, because you have been digging like Isaac. You have been digging wells. Like Rebecca, you have been bringing water up from the wells, and you've been feeding the thirsty camels, and you've been feeding your enemy. And not only will His hand with a nail in it be stretched out, but your hand with the calluses in your hands will be stretched out, and He will take your hand, and He will bring you into His Father's kingdom. And you will know that all the strife and opposition and accusation of this world has been worth it. Because people will see your good works, and they will bring glory to Yahuwah.